refugees. From the founding of organizations to advocating for just policies, centering the language, culture, and dignity of all people, regardless of their immigration status, has been central to IME's founding principles. In response to the most recent wave of attacks on immigrant and language minority communities, this panel centers cultural knowledge, historical memory, and collective resistance to meet and expand beyond the present moment. We have 4 incredible panelists here for you today, and I'll start by introducing Nicole Phillips, who's a faculty member at UC College of Law and the University of San Francisco School of Education. Let me tell you a little bit about Nicole while we look for this table. Do you want to send it to me?
Yeah, I think so.
That might be the best. Nicole teaches international human rights law and advocacy here for us in IME. She's also a human rights litigation consultant and an adjunct professor at UC College of the Law, San Francisco, where she teaches human rights and rule of law in Haiti. Ms. Phillips has been an expert witness on country conditions in Haiti in over 40 US immigration cases and has appeared before the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights and several UN human rights bodies. Ms. Phillips previously served as the legal director of Haitian Bridge Alliance, a nonprofit organization that advocates for fair and humane immigration policies for Haitian and other Black migrants, and as a staff attorney with the Haiti-based Institute for Justice and Democracy.
Okay.
Okay.
Except that we have no slides yet.
Oh, I have it. Rosa just forwarded.
Oh, fantastic.
Let me set this up here. Give us a second. I think tech problems have been a IME feature too for many of our decades. Okay, so here we go. This screen mirroring. Okay, should I put it on slideshow?
Yeah.
Can you see the notes this way? Perfect. And you all have, should I do time for you?
Sure. Can you give me like a 1 or 2 minute warning? Okay. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My students know that I like to walk around. Thank you all for coming. First, I want to really thank the University of San Francisco for hosting this day for us. And right now, in these times, politically, socially, events like this are really special and not to be taken for granted. So grateful for you all presenting your side of it here, and for everybody who organized this. How are we on sound? Can people hear me? Great. And particularly thanks to my students that are here. Okay, so today the panel is called, it's a very long title. This is not a catchy hashtag. Decolonization instead of deportation, discriminatory immigration policies against Haitian refugees in the Americas and the root causes of Haitian migration. So basically, my conclusion's already in the title of the presentation, and I can sit down, but I won't. And so Haiti, why are we talking about Haiti today? There's so much happening all over the world. Why is Haiti so important? And in part because I lived there for 8 years and I'm obsessed with Haiti, and so I want to talk about Haiti all the time. But I also think that it's relevant for all of us because Haiti really is a microcosm of what's happening politically, economically in the rest of the world, particularly when we think about colonialization and and neoliberalism. Haiti is the canary in the coal mine, the embodiment of it. Okay, so right now, about 2 different screens. So this is, Haiti, which is, I lived there for 8 years, not as a sacrifice, but because I absolutely loved the country. And unfortunately, this is what Haiti is facing now in most of the capital and increasingly in other parts of the country. It is one of the most dangerous countries in the world. There's anarchy that's quite similar to what we saw in Somalia, where there hasn't been elections since 2017, and the country has been ruled by essentially armed gangs. Half of the population is in severe acute hunger crisis, half the population. And the UN is extremely worried about a famine coming to Haiti. There's lack of fuel, education, hospitals, basic public services. Unfortunately, Haitians don't have access to. About 10% of the population has been displaced, often multiple times, by armed groups. So this is the situation for Haitians now. When we think about Haitians applying for refugee status for asylum in the United States, this is what they're fleeing. This is what they're coming from. And this is the migrant journey that they took. So they left Haiti because who wants to be there when you've been displaced a couple of times? There's nothing for you there any longer. Every Haitian I've ever spoken to would rather live in Haiti. I would rather live in Haiti, but it's not safe. So people fled, and where they fled to was Sao Paulo, Brazil in general, and then into Chile, because they were able to get temporary visas at the time when those two countries needed the migrant labor, right? So very typical, they need the migrant labor, come on in. The Olympic stadium's been built, the World Cup stadiums have been built, we don't need you anymore, leave! And so that's what they've done with Haitians. And Haitians got the clue. They got the hint. And so they started migrating up through the Darien Gap between Colombia and Panama. If anybody's heard of the Darien Gap, it's 100 kilometers of dense forest. It is one of the most dangerous places on this planet because of cartels and armed groups. They go through that by foot. At the time in 2021 or so, it was taking 15 days. People would steal all their food. They had no food. Babies had no food. They go through Mexico on their way to the United States. Why the United States? Because every Haitian family has somebody in the United States, and that's who they want to be with. It's their family in the United States. The United States, which is Haiti's one. Please come in and sit. Please, please, please. Thank you for your courtesy, but come sit and make room. If there's room for your neighbors, make room for them. So every Haitian has a Haitian family member. They came, they want stability, and they want a piece of the American dream. And they're fleeing. Many of them have very, very solid asylum claims. Most of them have been stuck in Mexico for upwards of a year, trying to figure out how to get into the United States. Various different presidents, starting with Obama, have closed the border to the US, and so it's become very difficult for not just Haitians, but for others to enter. And this is what they face when they're going through the Americas. Through that map that I just showed you, they're facing anti-Black discrimination. Imagine, if anybody's been to Chile. Has anybody been to Chile? See a lot of Black people in Chile? You did, they were probably Haitian? Not a lot, right? So people stand out. Haitians, migrants stand out. A lot of discrimination based on the color of their skin and being a migrant. A lot of violence and exploitation from cartels, particularly in Mexico. Lack of housing, medical care. Just to give you one small anecdote. A couple that I spoke with, a husband with a lawsuit in Haiti, politically active, fled because of violence. Very solid asylum claim. Shouldn't matter, but it does. He left, he and his wife, they were in Chile. She was 9 months pregnant. Her water broke. She's in labor. She goes to the hospital in Chile, and they refuse her. They turn her away. She gives birth in a little plaza outside of the hospital. Thank God she's young. Thank God everything went okay. Her husband delivered the baby. They did take the baby because of her Chilean law, she's a citizen, but they refused all medical treatment for her. And that gives you kind of the quality of discrimination that people are facing. And so, of course, if they call the police, because I had another client who said that his daughter, who was 16, every time he would walk home back to their apartment, they'd go by the public plaza, men would be leering, and one day they followed her up into the apartment and assaulted her. He called the police, and they're like, no, how could, they deny it, right? There's nothing you can do. You're not safe, you cannot trust the authorities. So Haitians got the picture, you don't need to tell them twice, they left. They made that journey. Unfair refugee and immigration laws, well, that's in the United States as well. So let's talk about that. We could have an entire session on this, and I only have 13 minutes, so we're not going to. These slides, I think, will be available somewhere. But a lot of this stuff we know about. First of all, important to say this is not just Trump, right? The border was open for people seeking asylum at the border until the Obama administration, until Haitians started coming by foot through Mexico in 2016. Then they closed the border. So I want to be real clear that Obama closed the border because Haitians were coming across the border. And it has basically largely remained closed in one form or another since then. So that's not a Trump thing. That's an American thing. We've seen expedited removal, we've seen all this in the news. You're taking people off the streets, deporting them sometimes within a matter of hours from Los Angeles. Who knows where they're deporting them? Racial profiling, excessive force, sometimes picking up permanent residents, citizens, because it's racial profiling, you go for who you want to. Ending protections under the Biden administration and then calling those people illegal, even though they came in lawfully. Adopting policies in an aggressive manner that undermines all sense of security, going after unaccompanied children. That was the first group he went after, was unaccompanied children. Then he went after birthright citizenship for children again, and permanent residents, right? They can maybe take away being naturalized. So everybody in this room, either we are affected or our very close loved one is affected by these immigration policies. And a lot of this is based on political speech and association. Persecuting immigrants, taking away their student visas, their green cards, what have you. So I want to talk a little bit about root causes of Haitian migration. What we know what's happening in Haiti, how to get there. There was a slave revolt in 1804. I'm not allowed to talk about Haiti unless I mention that Haiti was the first country to be declared independence against her colonizers and the first country to abolish slavery in the world. Then, however, France and the United States wouldn't allow, well, France at the time wasn't happy with that. We'll talk about that in a second. But I want you to know here, U.S. occupation. Now, by 1915, the U.S. was already wanted some men in there, right? Wanted some skin in that game. They brought in the Marines and fully occupied Haiti for 15 years. Changed the Constitution, foreigners can now own land, stole the gold in the bank reserves, did whatever the U.S. did back then and continually. And then the U.S. controlled the Duvalier dictatorship, paid for, gave money to the most corrupt and one of the most dangerous dictatorships in the 20th century, which is saying a lot. For 30 years, they controlled coups d'etats, they leveraged coups d'etats. Monisha knows about this, she's worked on this issue. Coups d'etats, and now the United States is continuing to interfere in elections on the regular. Now, I mentioned I would talk about this. When Haiti became independent, the French government had the audacity to leverage the independence debt, we call it, which is 100 million francs for the lost property, the lost chattel of the French, which was what? Humans. Human beings, slaves. So Haitians had to pay for themselves to liberate themselves. They had to pay for them, which is a problem in itself, but it's mostly a problem because they couldn't afford it. So Haiti went from the second most profitable territory in the Americas after the United States, the second most profitable, to all of a sudden their repayments were equivalent to 10 times the annual revenue of the Haitian government at the time. There's a wonderful New York Times expose on this. If anybody's interested, it's fantastic. Lots of photos, etc. And so at the time, the Haitian government, or the US government wouldn't accept that Haiti had declared independence, right? As Frederick Douglass said, Haiti is black, we have never forgiven Haiti for being black, right? A senator from Missouri argued that welcoming a Haitian diplomat would be seen as a reward for the murder of masters and mistresses by the black slaves. This is how the US treated Haiti. Then there's all the financial
entanglements and control. That there was those little Clintons up there right after the earthquake in Haiti, through debt, trade policies, aid, foreign aid, USAID, government destabilization, and the like. So let's be clear what we have here. When Haitians started fleeing under the Duvalier dictatorship that was funded by the US government, the US changed its laws to criminalize immigration. The immigration detention centers that we know today were started in 1981 by President Ronald Reagan because Haitians had taken to the seas by boat to flee the very dictatorship that the US government was funding and supporting politically at the UN and otherwise. Now, the US is closing its border to Haitians, right? So Haitians are in Haiti because they were trafficked there. Nobody chose to go there, right? And then they started fleeing because the US made the system, and the French and the colonialists made the country unlivable over years, and now they won't let them leave. Now they're putting them in detention when they try and leave, and or just completely shutting the border. So I'm going to close by saying, when we think about this issue, what is it? What's the reparations? What's the real remedy? Yes, we can get in the nitty-gritty on the asylum. We got to redo our asylum laws, and they have to be fair. And blah, blah, blah. I can talk to you about that for days. But really, at the nut of this, it's decolonization instead of deportation, right? I borrow from Tendai Ashime, who's a former special rapporteur on racism and xenophobia, who's a professor at UCLA. And she says, but I'm interested in thinking about race as a border and tying it back again to the way we think about territorial borders, territorial and political borders. So what is a national border? What is a territorial border? We can think of borders as sites among whose purpose is to enforce an exclusion. We can think of race as doing similar work. It either enforces exclusion or inclusion, and that inclusion can be on the equal basis or on a subordinate basis. And I see Blackness in particular functioning as a site of exclusion for Black migrants. Movement of Haitian Black bodies is always seen as controversial, but letting them migrate and move borders is Black sovereignty. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. I want to introduce now Edgar Lemkin, who we introduced earlier, was one of the reasons why we held this event. Reminded us that it was IME's 50 years. Let me tell you a little bit about Edgar. He's an inspiring educator whose 40-year journey spans his roles as a bilingual teacher, an administrator, a superintendent, and now Chief Executive Director of the California Association of Bilingual Education. Born in Mexico City, Dr. Lemkin has championed bilingual education and equity-focused programs in the US and beyond, advocating for underserved students and promoting cross-cultural understanding. His legacy of making a meaningful difference for social justice extends to his family, community, and the world. And Dr. Lemkin graduated from the IME doctoral program in 2006, correct? Welcome up. Okay.
Greetings, everyone. It's a pleasure being here with all of you. It's incredible what's happening in Haiti, and again, that's not something that is standing alone. There's many other places that are facing very similar challenges. And here in the US, as all of you know, we're facing our own challenges as well, right? Let me begin by sharing with you a little bit about myself, because I think I represent a little bit of what this topic is about, which has to do with, justice, which has to do with education, with migration, with language rights. I'll begin by sharing with you that Edgar is an English name. I did not know. And Edgar, the peaceful one, was a king in the 10th century in England, and apparently brought peace, because there used to be a lot of wars and turmoil at that time. So I asked my mom, why did you name me Edgar? And it wasn't about what I just shared with you. It was that she was in a boarding school, and when they had parties, all women boarding school, all men boarding school, she fell in love with this one guy from a male boarding school. This was in Mexico. And they made a pact that they were going to name their first child Edgar. I'm like, okay. And normally, Lampkin, people look at me and I say, hi, my name is Edgar Lampkin. They're like, nice to meet you. You don't look like a Lampkin. And the reality is that I am, but let me share with you why. My parents divorced when I was 5 years old. And at that time, my mom didn't know what to do. She called her brother, who was a foreman in Northern California, 11 miles out of this little town named Colusa. How many of you have heard of Colusa? Woo, shoot, lots of people, okay. And he said, come on down and start a new life. I'll put you to work here. You can work in agriculture and raise your money and save your money, and then bring your kids, give them a better life. And so while she worked in agriculture, picking the squash, the cantaloupes, the watermelons, almost everything we have at our table, as she was working in the fields, harvesting the crops, the harvest driver and mechanic was Leon Lampkin, half African American, half Jamaican, and they saw each other, they connected, they dated, they got married, and Leon Lampkin said, Flavia, go get your kids, bring them over here, and let's raise them. There were 5 of us. Remember, we got divorced. My parents divorced when I was 5. There was a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, 2-year-old, and 3 or 4 months. And my grandparents were the ones that had to take care of us during the time that she was out here, until she went to go get us. So it was very difficult. We lived in pretty extreme poverty. My grandfather was a cab driver. My grandmother used to cook for the people that worked in the factories around the area where we lived. This was in Mexico City. And so when I share with you Lampkin, I share that name with you in his honor, because there aren't very many people that would take and raise 5 kids from somebody else's family, right? So that's the story behind my name. So I stand before you today as someone whose journey is deeply tied to the immigrant story of this nation. I came to this country as an immigrant child. My earliest memories here are not of those classrooms or playgrounds, but of the fields, harvesting crops, irrigating, pruning the trees alongside my family. Those fields taught me discipline, resilience, and the dignity of hard work. I did not stop working in the fields until after I became a school administrator, because I did not want to forget where I came from. I was a principal, and I would still go at least 1 week, and it got shorter, 5 days, and then 4 days, and then 3 days. That's hard work. And like I said, I didn't want to forget where I came from. I then also became a bilingual teacher after graduating from college. And as a bilingual teacher, it was the same thing. Just work hard, have an impact on kids, teach them more than one language. It was a bilingual classroom, but I actually had students that were Hmong, students that were that spoke Mandarin, and that spoke other languages in my classroom. And I taught them Spanish, and I taught them English, and whenever we had a chance, we would have some of them teach us some of their language. This was in the Sacramento area. And again, as a school principal, part of the other reason why I stopped working in the fields was because I did not want to forget where I came from as a bilingual teacher. So at that point, then I would train teachers by them giving me students. Then there would be a teacher that would train the teachers on the model that we were training teachers in. And I would have a multi-grade classroom, K-3, or 4-6, or 9-12, multi-age. I said, bring it on. They'd give me some of their most challenging kids, and I would work with them during the week. Teachers, 50 to 60 teachers would come into the classroom and observe me working with the students. And I did that because I did not want to forget about where I came from as a bilingual teacher and make sure that I walk my talk. My parents dreamed of wanting more for me, and education became the pathway forward. I was the first in my family to graduate from college, earn a bachelor's degree, then a master's degree, and eventually a doctorate in international multicultural education here, IME50. That journey took me into becoming a bilingual teacher, a California Mini Corps coordinator, a vice principal, a district director of pupil services, a county office director of English learner services, a school district superintendent, and all along I tried to do the work that needed to be done that I had learned in regards to social justice work, in regards to doing what needed to be done to help communities that represented who I was and where I came from. And now, of course, as a CEO for the California Association for Bilingual Education, it's like hand and glove. How does that, what's that saying? Hand in glove or glove in hand? I'm not very good. I'm still an English learner, don't forget. Through every role, my commitment has remained the same: uplift bilingual, immigrant, and refugee students and families by centering their language, their culture, and dignity. At CABE, we advocate for equity of multilingualism and for preparing our students to thrive in a global society. College and career readiness, be able to speak not just one or two, but multiple languages, a minimum of 4 languages, because that is what makes you globally competitive. I know it's doable and possible because I had a de facto bilingual education. I didn't have that opportunity to go to school and learn 2 languages. I learned Spanish, kinder, first, second, half a third, came here to this country, half a third, fourth, half a fifth, and then went back to Mexico with my grandparents, half a fifth and 6th grade. That was tough, and I was able to pull through it, and that gave me the opportunity to be bilingual, biliterate, bicultural. I did not know how helpful that would be until down the road. California is home to one of the most linguistically and culturally diverse student populations in the nation. We are the Golden State, the 4th largest economy in the world. But if we want to remain the Golden State, what I share with folks is that we must learn to mine the new gold. And the new gold is found not in the ground. It is found in the brilliance, the talents, and the assets, and the languages of our diverse students and families. So when people tell me that English is the official language, I say, yes, English is the official language, but being bilingual is a superpower. And being multilingual, that is a super duper power. Our children are not the problem, they are the promise. They are the future authors of California's next chapter. And if we have the courage to center their voices, honor their cultures, and invest in their education, then our Golden State will shine brighter than ever before. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Yes. And so the work has to be done. What I'm seeing, because our organization covers the whole state, is that there is a disparity here in California. In Southern California, folks are seeing, they know and they understand and they sense and they're focused on building multilingualism. In Northern California, we're still apprehensive about and have not pushed back on the importance of being bilingual or multilingual. Who's going to be at a disadvantage if we do not find a way to balance that out in California? Who's going to be at disadvantage is our students in Northern California. There's this African-American superintendent who just turned 28 elementary schools, his entire school district, into dual language programs. Mandarin English, Vietnamese English, Korean English, and Spanish English. Because that's the community, that's the diversity that is there. That's the gold that they're mining at this point. And so I want to wake us all up here in Northern California and say, we have work we need to do. Let's roll up our shoulders and make that happen. Thank you.
Oh, that's right, you're right, thank you. Technologically challenged as always. Okay, so it's my great honor to introduce our dear colleague, Dr. Sadiq Popal, who needs very little introduction, but I'll give you, oh, what happened there? Is that you? You should do that fanciness. Okay, Sadiq is our colleague in IME. He's an associate professor. He is the director of the MA TESOL program. He's also the president-elect of the California Association of Teachers of English to Speakers of Other Languages, CATESOL. Their conference is in 2 weeks that Sadiq is chairing. Highly encourage attending in Hayward. He's also the author of a grammar book for teachers. And in addition to his many, many academic accomplishments, Dr. Popal is the founder and president of the Noor Islamic and Cultural Community Center, a nonprofit organization dedicated to serving the religious, educational, and social needs of the growing Muslim community in Northern California. Sadiq.
Good afternoon, everyone, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Well, what I said in Arabic, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, for those of you who didn't understand, I know you're all multilingual, you're super duper power that you mentioned, but it simply means that may peace be upon you. That's the assalamu alaikum part. And assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh means may God bless you. So may peace be upon you and may God bless you. I'd like to start by thanking Dr. Bajaj and Dr. Jimenez for giving me this very unique opportunity to be part of this panel and to share my experience of immigrant, experience and what we do at Noor Islamic and Cultural Community Center to help these immigrants, to empower these immigrants, and to give voice to these immigrants that they come here and they feel and are helpless voiceless, and they need help and assistance. And that's what I'm going to do. And do I have 23 minutes or 13 minutes?
13.
Oh, okay, I'm just checking.
12 now.
Okay. Well, first of all, the immigration of Africans in the United States starts in the 1980s after the Soviet invasion and occupation of Afghanistan. Many people think that you're just thinking about the immigration of Afghan refugees to this country since 2021. No, it started in 1980. The Russians came or invaded Afghanistan, occupied Afghanistan on December 27th of 1979. I was a very young man and even had hair when they came, and I didn't get along with them very well. And so I was a university professor, and they were claiming that they are there to stop the invasions of American, Egyptians, and Saudis. But there were no Egyptians there, and there were no Saudis there, and Americans were not there. So we taught at the university that we need to educate the public that the real invaders are the Russians themselves. They're not there to protect us, but they are the ones who invaded us, who have violated the country, and who have occupied the country. So we taught that's our job as an educator. It is not just to teach the textbook in the school, but to educate the public. And that's what we thought our job was. So as having the super duper power of being multilingual within the country, I speak a number of different languages. And so we went to different villages, different cities, different provinces, and educating people that if you want to fight an invader, don't wait for Egyptians. Don't wait for Americans. Fight the Russians now. They are the invaders. When you speak like this, the Russians don't like it for some reason. And so because of that, life became difficult, so I left. So I was among the first wave of Afghan refugees at that time when the Russians came. The 5 million Afghan at that time were displaced. And now the recent wave of refugees that you see right now, it happened after the collapse of the American supported government. Remember in 2001, the Americans went and occupied Afghanistan, and they were there for over 20 years. But they could not, they had to give up the power, and the Afghan government collapsed, and they had to leave. So on August 15 of 2021, so this new wave of Afghan refugees started to come to this country. And these were the ones that most of them, that they work for American agencies. They work as translators, they work in the offices, they work as assistants, they work as cooks, they work as housekeepers. And because of their affiliation and work for Americans and American agencies, their lives were in danger. And they had to leave, and they were basically, you probably saw these pictures of Afghans clinging on the plane. They were not looking for joyride, but it's just that they were trying to save their lives and the life of their loved ones. And so when the Afghans left, the statistics is different, but at this point, it's over 200,000 Afghans since 2021 that they have left Afghanistan. And the great majority of these are what? Children. And then the second category is men and then women. So the Afghans, when they were either left by American planes or they made their way to other countries to come to the United States, they were first brought to Qatar or Dubai or some other places that there was an American base, American military base. At the very, very beginning, they were also sending Afghan refugees from Afghanistan to Germany and Italy, where we have American bases. And then later on, they just took them to Qatar. There, they were screened. There was some health screening and security screening, and those that they were found eligible, they were brought to the United States. And when I say that the screening took a long time, when the federal government does things, it takes longer than usual, okay? And so there, they were brought to 8 different military bases within the United States, and there they were again screened, and some people that they were not found desirable, as the federal government puts it, they were sent back to other parts of the world or Afghanistan. And then they were sent to different immigration resettlement agencies. And in the Bay Area, we have two big organizations. One is IRC, which is International Rescue Committee, and the other one is the Jewish Family and Community Services. There are other smaller agencies that they do initial resettlement. That initial resettlement is what? Picking up the immigrant from the airport, finding them temporary housing, and then taking them to what? Permanent housing, helping them with finding jobs, with clothes, food, and all of that. And those agencies, the IRC and the Jewish Family and Community Services, they referred some of their clients to us at Nur Islamic and Cultural Community Center. Although our job was as an Islamic center, community center, it was not part of our bylaws to help refugees. We were facilitating people's what? Praying and doing religious ceremonies. And we did some, we had some heritage language education. That means that we help, because the government did not, at least in the city of Concord, we don't have bilingual education for Pashto, Dari, and Farsi speaking kids and Arabic speaking kids. We offer these classes as we speak. We offer these classes in the Nur Islamic and Cultural Community Center to help these immigrants to be able to read their language, to write their language, to speak their language, and to read, write, and speak it at age-appropriate and grade-appropriate level. And so we're doing our part to make our kids, as Edgar put it, to give them the super duper power. By what? I love that term, so I will quote you on this. Yeah, it's a good one, right? So we basically do, that was our mission. But when we saw these Africans that they came with nothing but the clothes that they were wearing, I said, you know what? We need to give them some power, if not super duper power. So we started what? With collecting. We did not have any grants. We did not have any federal funding or anything. We went to people. We went to media and said, hey, please help these people. We came up with lists. And that's why we brought people from all over the Bay Area to plan. That was the planning session over here, to how to help these Afghans. And the beauty of this country is this, that when they see a need, people from different walks of life, belonging to different religion, praying to different gods, they came all in the Nur Islamic Center. Jewish, Christians, Hindus, Baha'is, they all came there to help their fellow human beings. They look at them as a fellow, and the people, they brought food and clothes, the kind of cars that they were driving when they came to the Nur Islamic Center, you would say, you know what, keep that thing for yourself, because it looked like what? They themselves needed help. But they had the heart to help a fellow human being. So a lot of 90% of our help came from very, very ordinary people, that they were working, doing some basic jobs, working like in a grocery store, working, landscaping. Those are the kind of things that they were doing, but they had the heart, the courage to come and help a fellow human being. And that's how we started helping these Afghan refugees. How am I tying with doing the time? 24 more minutes, okay. So we put together, because the most important thing was what? Food and clothes. They didn't have clothes. They just came with what they were wearing. So we went around, we went to churches, Catholic churches, Protestant churches, synagogues, temples. They all brought, and the religion was not an issue, because it's an Islamic place, you don't go to a temple. We did, and they were generous, and they came and helped. Synagogue, to this day they are helping us. With our school, with our system. So we created these what we call it, care packages. And we brought these Afghan refugees, invited them to come, but because we know Nur Islamic centers primarily were Afghans, although there are other immigrants from other parts of Muslims, other parts of Islamic countries, Middle East, India, Pakistan, but primarily Afghans. So we know that, yes, these Afghans have lost their country, they've lost their money, they've lost their jobs, but we need to do it in a dignified way. And I think Nicole mentioned the word dignified and dignity. So that they've lost everything, but let's give them the help in a way that they do not feel belittled, that I know I need clothes now, I need food now, I need money now. No, what we did was, we did it the Afghan way. And that was what? We know that these people needed help, but let's keep their, do it in a dignified way. What we did was, we invited them, we would just, the Jewish family and community services would call us like, I have 20 families for you. We would invite 5 families at the time, or IRC, and then we would provide lunch or dinner for them. And then I said that it's not like a session where you get food or clothes. It's a session, we invite you for dinner, we invite you for lunch. And we did that. We also brought, this was our first refugee family. We also brought the city officials. I personally invited the city council. All 5 of them showed up most of the time. The mayor, to welcome them, to shake their hand. Welcome to Concord, welcome to California. We invited the board members. There are 11 board members at New Islamic and Cultural Community Center. And there are elderly members. You think I'm old? Come and see our board, okay? Yeah. They're pretty old, okay? Okay, yeah. Yeah, walkers, canes and things are just really, it's everything, yeah. And we always carry oxygen there just in case. So when they came, when they saw that these people, you know, it means a lot in Afghan culture. When an elderly member of a community comes and welcomes you, it means so much. And they came and spoke 2 languages, Dari, Pashto, and welcomed them and brought food. And after all of that, we said, by the way, we have some gifts for you. They didn't say what, it's a donation or used clothes or something. Actually, at that time, the city of Concord did not allow us to use used clothes, as the Mercedes-Benz company called it, pre-owned clothes. Okay, so it was just that we needed to have everything new because of COVID, because it was not safe for them. So we put all of these, which was collected, brought by people. So I have 10 more minutes or 1 minute? Okay. Its eyes are giving up on me. Okay, so we brought these in a way that we asked them to go and choose what they need. We did not want to impose to put things in a box and give it to them. So to make a long story short, so we brought food items, clothing items, money, which was in a form of a gift card, and then give them orientation, took them to these grocery stores to show them how they can use the gift card to cash it and to buy clothes. So that is how we treated them. And also we offered an after-school program for the kids. And that after-school program, in addition to that was in addition to the heritage language program that we have. Here, they were primarily refugee kids that are newly arrived, and we provided ESL, and thank you for the RIT was one of the funders of that program, that they funded the program that we could pay the teachers because we had to find credentialed teachers to teach these classes. So we taught computer literacy classes, we taught math classes, ESL classes, and even financial literacy for these kids, because we don't want them to just survive, but to succeed. But to succeed, they needed to have the right education. And the way we did it, that we send our drivers to their homes in the morning to pick them up from there on Saturdays and Sundays, bring them to the school, we fed them, we brought them good, healthy breakfast. When they saw healthy breakfast, they didn't like it, but when we brought donuts, they were excited. So we mixed it somehow. And then, they didn't like the healthy banana and apples and things, forget it. Okay, so anyhow, and then after that, after they were brought this breakfast, or they ate breakfast, we sent them to these different classes, and at 1 o'clock, we took them back home. The program we created was a very unique program, not only in the state of California, but in the whole nation. And that's why the program has been documented in a movie or film, a documentary. It is called Far From Home. It is it's going to be screened tomorrow at New Islamic Center, and it will be screened at NPR stations on Tuesday, October 7th, and it is nominated for Oscar. That this is just because of this dealing with people, giving them voice, giving them power, and actually super duper power. And thank you very much. Yeah.
Now, Now you know why we love Dr. Popal so much.
I left a lot of slides there.
Okay, it's my great honor to introduce Dr. Jane Pack. I think we met in a cafe maybe 10 years ago. 10 years ago, she was interested in the doctoral program, and fast forward a decade, she's Dr. Jane Pack. Beautiful dissertation, beautiful life's work. She's the co-executive director at Refugee and Immigrant Transitions and adjunct professor in the Master in Migration Studies program here at USF. She holds a public seat on the State Advisory Council for the Refugee Program Bureau in the California Department of Social Services. And she's just an amazing human being. She brings 25 years of experience in education in various contexts across nonprofit, higher education, government, and business sectors, and she embodies this concept of dignity. So I'll hand it over to her.
Well, people stayed after lunch, how great. Well, thank you, Dr. Bajaj, who we also call Mayor Bajaj, if anybody's part of CIES, International Society for International and Comparative Education. We know Dr. Bajaj as Mayor Bajaj. As we're warming up, I'm curious, how many of you are IME students presently? So you're forced to come here instead of class? Just joking. How many of you are alum? Okay, so together it's the majority of the classroom. How many of you speak more than one language? Can you look around and see the number of hands around or up? How many of you would be super duper power, that's gonna stay forever, and speak 3 or more languages? 4? 5? Sadiq. Was there another 5 over there? Okay, 5. Dr. Popal, you got it. I don't have any prizes, I'm sorry, that was just my stall. So we were asked today, well, before I actually start, I do really want to thank Dr. Rosa Jimenez, Dr. Manisha Bajaj, and the entire IME faculty, students, staff, community. I'm so grateful for this. How many of you were at the plenary session earlier today marking? Okay, many of you, but not all of you. It was just a beautiful history of the chronology and genealogy of IME. And it was just a beautiful opportunity to remind me where some of my thoughts were inspired, some of the ways I would wrestle with things were inspired, some of the friendships, including Dr. Arjanal in the back, were formed, and Dr. Bajaj. It's just a beautiful place to also wrestle with the issues of today. So we were asked to talk about education, migration, and language as it relates to our work and or research. And I didn't know how to start because there's so much that falls into that. So what I'm going to try to do today, try is the word, is I'm going to try by introducing refugee and immigrant transitions, a little bit like Dr. Popal, who we are, what we do, and I'm going to take a little bit of a language lens through some of our work. I then want to contextualize this moment, sort of zoom out into what's happening in the United States. So thank you, Nicole, because I think that feeds really nicely into what I'm going to share with you as well. And then I want to go back to our work at IME, because, at RIT, all these 3-letter amazing acronyms, but really kind of ground it in IME pillars, at least when I was in the program, and show how I've been trying to infuse the IME principles and teachings and learnings into my work at RIT. Does that work? And if I go off course, I'm sorry, it's been a really long week. So a little bit of context setting about RIT. RIT stands for Refugee and Immigrant Transitions. We were started in 1982, primarily working with Southeast Asian women refugees who were resettled in the Tenderloin district in San Francisco. The founders saw that there was a lot of isolation in terms of language and social, and so he set up this program of community partnerships where he would train community volunteers to go into homes and teach English. But that really turned into these bi-directional, mutually supporting, mutual learning relationships where people really grew friendships for the long term. Fast forward 40 something years, and here we are today. We're in 4 counties in San Francisco, Oakland, Alameda, Contra Costa County, where we partner with Noor, and also with some work in Santa Clara County. But honestly, since COVID, we've really expanded farther with virtual programs as well. We're primarily an educational nonprofit organization. We're in schools, we're in adult schools, we're in community centers, we're in homes, and we work with a multitude of community members, all who have sought refuge in the United States. We don't discriminate based on where you come from, certainly by religion, certainly by gender, certainly by status, certainly by pathway. That may or may not change depending on the administration that we're dealing with. Our vision is to see all newcomers thrive and become full participating members of our shared communities. And those of you in nonprofits know that vision statements are very aspirational, but these words are very meaningful to us. So I just want to break it down for a moment. So when we say all newcomers, we actually mean all immigrants, all refugees who have come to our space seeking refuge. And as I mentioned, that's of all backgrounds. Last year we worked with folks from 40 to 50 countries around the world. In our lifetime as an organization, over 70 countries around the world. That means that we're working with multiple languages and multiple super duper heroes around in many different contexts. And so we sit in this intersection of education and refugee and immigrant communities. And then in addition to education, we have case management to really kind of wrap around in terms of social supports and other supports that people might need or need to be bridged to at their time of transition. And then we also have community leadership programs as well as women's wellness programs as well. So we've really, really grown over the years. Last year we worked with 2,000, we partnered with 2,000 people new to the Bay Area or long time in the Bay Area as immigrants and refugees. What we mean by full participating members, it means that we're committed to a lifelong partnership or a lifelong or however long relationship with people who have come to the Bay Area seeking refuge. So what that means is we may have ESOL classes, as mentioned, VESOL classes, vocational English, citizenship classes, DMV classes to make sure our youth are getting their driver's licenses, pathways to jobs, so on and so forth. And so it really means that it's not just a one and done sort of check mark kind of situation, but through that process we're also building deep relationships, not only between ourselves and clients or student families, but also within and amongst one another. And that really leads me to the shared communities. This is something that we stress very, very highly, and it wasn't necessarily intentional at the beginning, but through careful observation and some inquiry and ongoing observations, we realized, wow, this is a really special place. We have communities from 40 countries around the world. Our staff of 34-ish people, we kind of oscillate depending on the needs of the day, speak 20 plus languages. So in our communities, we have that many languages, and more our volunteers are bilingual or multilingual. Currently, we have 74 community volunteers around the Bay Area, and we're really trying to increase the folks who can translanguage with our students to help sort of with that transitioning process. Something I want to say about our adult program in terms of how language feeds into that is that, as I mentioned, our staff speak 20 plus languages around the world. We have school sites, this and that, in very many places we're in, but in our community hub at Oakland, we have multiple classes, as I mentioned. We've got childcare, also a systemic barrier for many, otherwise wouldn't have been able to access education. And then we've got our caseworkers and our childcare providers all in the same building. So what that means is if you walk into a class such as Malala's class, who'll be speaking at KLW with Dr. Papal on Tuesday, and she's teaching a lesson or making an announcement about something really vital. Maybe it's know your rights, maybe it's something about COVID, maybe it's another announcement. Then people are split into language groups. And if we need, we'll bring in our colleagues tonight from childcare to translate into Kenya. We'll bring in another team member to translate in Arabic and somebody else in Mum Spanish. And so we have this environment where it's almost normalized or is normalized to be in this not only translanguaging space, but almost sort of this meta space of multiple languages working together, and yet in shared community in this process of adjusting to their new life in the United States. Just want to share a quick story. I was sitting in teacher Jackie's classroom. She's our amazing vocational educational teacher, also an IME alum, I think, right? Right? Didn't she come here? Shout out Jackie if you're online. And she was teaching this particular day the question words: who, what, where, when, why, how. And this particular day, they were really focusing on where. Where is your water bottle? Where is your chair? Where are you from? which we don't ask on the streets because I got a lot of that growing up and I didn't like that so much. But in this particular humanizing space, it was a very welcoming space for students to go up one by one and say, I'm from Eritrea, and point to where that was on the map. I'm from Yemen. Look, it's close to Eritrea. I'm from Cuba. I am from Haiti. I'm from Sri Lanka. And these are all members of our class, Guatemala, more and more, I'm forgetting Yemen, so on and so forth, as I mentioned. At the end of the class, similar to migration shares that we do in various classrooms, and I learned this from Dr. Bajaj, and Amy and I practice it in our class in the MIMS program. One of the students went up and gave his migration share and his home story share back in Eritrea. And it was beautiful. He was sharing culture and music. The whole class was dancing and everybody was exchanging in this joy. And at the end of it, he shared a picture of his mother, his father, his 4 children, their names, their ages, their hobbies. And then he said, but they're all back at home. I'm here alone. I don't have any family here. And within a split second, a man from Afghanistan stood up and said, we're your family here now. We are your family here now. And this place of sharedness that is so fractured in society right now is something that we cultivate so intentionally in our classrooms and community spaces. And so I just want to leave you with that, the possibilities when we center dignity and humanity. I'm gonna, did I go forward or backward here? There we go. So I mentioned this, clients and students speak 40, 45 languages. We work with 2,000 amazing human beings. And many of our staff are former clients or students themselves more and more, and bring so much knowledge and experiences of that journey that's more recent than others. But most of our staff are immigrants ourselves. I'm an immigrant from Canada. We are a separate country. And I identify as a child of refugees. Though not 1951 convention definition refugees, both my parents escaped North Korea when they were young, and that very much defines my identity and my work. And as I mentioned, volunteers, approximately 74 plus, speak 14 plus languages. So welcome is really important. The role of language in embodying, that was a word that came up this morning, in welcoming people, in a true essence of welcome, comes through in our organization. And so this is our attempt to just really make sure that whether you're new to this language, this system, this whatever, that you have something identifiable, whether it's a friendly face or something on the wall, that really ensures that you feel like you're at home. So this is just a quick brainstorm I did this morning. Why is language important? So there are language instructors and teachers and scholars in the room. So this is not from any citable thing. It's just more sort of my brainstorm this morning. Because language can welcome, right? Language can offer a sense of belonging. These happen to be core values of ours at RIT. Language can be liberatory. Language can include and bridge. It can provide access. You think about forms, systems, what have you throughout our society that are inaccessible because they're only in English or a few languages, not your own. The language can connect and create those shared understandings. We can have shared experiences even though we're from different cultures. It doesn't mean we diminish one another's cultures. We can uplift that and to a meta level of some sort of sharedness, right? And language is a gift that holds knowledge, which is not something that we necessarily see in certain spaces and dominant systems. But language can also be oppressive, and it can divide and it can exclude. So I'm gonna ask everybody to take a deep breath, because okay, thank you, you're really doing it, okay. The next slide, I'm gonna zoom out. And I'm gonna zoom out to our current context. And this is a little bit why I'm so tired today and the last however many months. But what I want to do in this next slide is just contextualize what we're experiencing under this current Trump administration since January 20th till now. And when he said flood the zone, whoa, 1 minute, 10 minutes, Dr. Popal, how we're experiencing this. So I'm not going to go into detail, but I'm going to show you how I conceptualize this into 3 categories. The first thing he did on your far left-hand side is he halted asylum. And this is something, as Nicole pointed out, was done in prior cases, but there are various means in which this was done. It was done by closing asylum to folks who were seeking asylum. There were very, very specific ways that certain applications, like the CBP One app, who's familiar with the CBP One app? Okay, so just a few of you, I know you're going to, was basically weaponized and turned around. So it's an app that was used under the Biden administration precisely to meter migration. So this is also a stalling strategy of certain administrations. But that was turned around to then later send letters to people to say it is time for you to go home. We had a woman in our program from Afghanistan, she was newly arrived, came to one of our case managers with a note on her CBP one on her phone that said, you have 2 weeks to go home. You are no longer welcome here. This was mass sent to many people. It was some were later rescinded, but the cruelty of this has been excessive. I'm not going to go into too many details there because I know I'm short on time. The middle category is making life so unlivable to drive you back home to places that might not be safe. I know Amy in the back knows this. Can't even say this, it's so angering. Did anybody hear about this announcement? It was actually in the news today about Freaky Friday today. Horrific. Letters going out to undocumented, unaccompanied minors, some who were actually accompanied when they came into this country and were separated forcibly by the, prior administrations, getting notices to go home. For the incentive $2,500, if you waive, and this is where I have to go into the details, I might be wrong, if you waive certain rights, like your right to seek asylum, like your right under the trafficking laws, and so on and so forth. Again, validate that for me, I need to look at the details. But all to say that language is so important. That CBP1 app, when it was in use under Biden, it was only translated in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole. When, Ellie, where are you? When we went to Tijuana a couple years ago, there you are. We went to Tijuana with the MIMS program a couple of years ago, and we met with some amazing homes and shelters that were doing amazing work in Tijuana. And the one thing that kept coming up for me, do you remember this? We would say, what is the greatest challenge that you face right now? So many different language groups coming through the southern border. The inability to communicate because all these languages, all these programs were developed in Spanish. So it kind of gives a different lens to dominant languages in different spaces. And what was beautiful about that cohort, many things, but in this particular moment, was the translanguaging that students were doing to inform the rest of us non-fluid Spanish speakers of what was being said. This fluid way that they were passing things on so beautifully. And this opportune moment when I kind of looked at this and said, this is an opportunity to use those skills to then leverage your other language skills to help bridge language divides for Dari Farsi speakers who may speak a little bit of English, or Tigrinya speakers, so on and so forth. So I think we're in a really interesting moment for language. Oh, time's up. Okay, can I just say, deep breath? And then very quickly, if I can just share, because this is really, I think, a tribute and a thank you to IME. I wanted to share back some of the work that I've been doing since leaving IME. So I have been with RIT since 2012. I've held different capacities in this job. I'm staff member, volunteer, board chair. Now Amy's our board chair. And then after IME, I came back as co-executive director. That was in 2020, 2019, I can't remember. And it was when George Floyd was murdered, racial reckoning. There was a lot of talk. There was some follow through, but not a lot, and a lot of retraction. And so it was that moment, empowered by the knowledge that I felt like I learned from IME, that we were able to kind of really start framing our work in different ways. We were always doing the work, but powerfully framing it with this language that we learned here at IME. So now we're working under this model of defend and build to defend our rights under this administration, human rights, Article 14, the right to seek asylum, Article 26, the right to education, but also build those shared communities I talked about before. Because if we're just defending and not doing the imagining of the building that we know is possible because we see it every day, then we're not going to go anywhere. Right? These frameworks we need to empower ourselves to move forward. So I'm hopeful as well as exhausted right now to be doing this work. And we're doing this through, came out of my dissertation, trying to cultivate a community research practice located in community in order to inform programs, advocacy, and research. And when I started at IME, it was a 3-pillar sort of approach. I don't know if it still is, scholarship, praxis, and advocacy. I find that I keep coming back to these pillars in my work. So I just want to thank IME and thank you all for listening and yeah, being a part of our community.
So I'd like to invite all of our panelists up and Rosa Jimenez as moderator. We probably will loop 3 questions at a time. Just in the interest of time, we have about 15 minutes for questions.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So we're going to go ahead and start with the 3 questions. I think what might be helpful is we'll take about 3 or 4 questions or so, and then folks can address 1 or more as they share out a little bit. We'll try to take them in little batches. So think about all that you've heard as we heard from folks sharing and working across diasporas, sharing and continuing to fuel the fire of hope and of love and of change. So let me know, let me see your hands, and, oh, you have a hand, go ahead, Val.
I do have a question, but I don't want to go first, but other people have a question.
You're ready, go.
Okay. I'm really bad at phrasing questions.
That's okay, I'll repeat it into the mic as well,
Okay,
so I'll shorten it.
thank you. Yeah, no, I'm a rambler, so you know. So basically, I work with immigrant refugee youth too at RIT. And something that's been coming up more often this year, and I would think is a reflection of what's going on politically, is a lot of my students are either feeling really, really pressured to perfect English. Because they're like, I don't want an accent, I don't want to be identifiable on the street, I don't want to be associated with something that's, you know, being seen very negatively, very publicly. And then I have the other side where they're becoming mute in public spaces, where they're like, I would rather be quiet than speak out of, again, that fear. And so how do I navigate that as an educator in a space where, again, we are trying to promote that community and that love for immigrant and refugee communities, but also recognizing that there's just so much that they're dealing with, and now language is again being weaponized. And so I don't know.
Thank you. So let's have here a couple more questions to shorten Val's thoughtful share. No, just so everyone can hear in the back. Thinking about, and for our panelists, thinking about language ideologies and how it really manifests in our everyday practice, particularly with our youth, who are experiencing some of the attacks around immigration and xenophobia, also through the praxis of language, right? Other folks, a couple other questions, Anthony, so y'all keep in mind the questions.
So I work at the community college, and kind of building on Val's question, how do you, like, the conversation we're having here today, how can I bring that back to an institution? Not just a person, but an institution, when sometimes the policies are black and white. Either you fit in the box or you don't. And so how can we humanize our policies to not just say the key buzzwords, oh, we stand with students, but actually live the words?
Thank you, Anthony. How can we humanize our practices? How can we take that back and think about the complexity of language, migration, and education, and the intersectionality of our identities? Other folks, yes.
How do you instill hope in those children again? I feel like that's something that we don't really see much. It's like, okay, like I feel this today, but I don't know how not to feel this way. It has been like my experiences working with younger children, especially that come from different cultural backgrounds. So how do you like reinstill that hope, or how do you reassure that hope, I guess is the truth.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's hear from our panelists. You can tackle any 1, 2, or 3 of the questions, and we'll have a few of you share different aspects of it.
Oh,
You can turn it to you. It should be on.
is it on? Can you hear me?
Yes. You're good.
It's on?
Yes.
Can you hear me? I'm going to say a little example and then what the point is. When I came to this country and had to learn English, I still recall this pushback of wanting to embarrass me for speaking Spanish or not saying words correctly. And I still remember the trauma of my mom saying, dile al doctor que blah, 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 blah. And I would have to translate for her at the doctor's office or at the employment development office, wherever it was. Or she would give me this paper, no entiendo qué dice esto, por favor, ayúdame. And at that time, I had such a hard time. I hated it. I did not want to do it. I was embarrassed, I felt awkward. And moving forward now, what I can share with you is, you have a choice of looking at something from an asset-based mindset or a deficit-based mindset. And if you're working from a deficit-based mindset, or if that individual student is working from a deficit, how do we work towards shifting their mindset into seeing that it is an asset? So moving forward now, one of my visions is to create a grow your own bilingual teachers K-16 pathway. Where at the high school, we take the students in dual immersion program, we move them all the way through into high school. And at high school, they have an opportunity to participate in an interpreter/translator in education pathway, where they can be certified to interpret and to translate. And we train them in the soft skills of what it is to be a professional translator, interpreter. And now you're looking at that student being able to help that parent that comes in and professionally be able to exercise the power, the superpower or the super duper power that they have to be able to support the families that need that help. So again, let's come from an asset-based mindset, not a deficit-based mindset.
Thank you, Dr. Lamkin. And we'll open it up for any other speakers, panelists who'd like to share.
Yeah, I'm just inspired by everything you've said today, and I really appreciate you sharing, those vulnerable stories. Certainly, I remember growing up and being one of few non-white kids in our school, and just, there's studies on this when you want to be white, right? Because you're the other, right? There's nobody else like you. I actually thought I was white at one point, and remember doing a double take in a mirror because it was like there was no reflection around me anywhere, except for my family, who I never saw this reflection all the time. But in any case, all to say, I think moving on your point about asset and strengths, I love that, and that's something that we try to do in our organization as well. I went quickly earlier, but we have a pathway for many students, well, not many because we can only have so many, but like more and more of our staff are former students, as I mentioned, and to kind of using those language gifts and seeing them as knowledge and bridges, as I mentioned, right? So students who then become peer tutors and alumni tutors, and then become staff, right? And just framing that as just an amazing asset, because it really, really is. I think there's maybe for hope, there's a little bit of that. I think there's also a wellness thing. Kids right now, and Val knows this better than most, is because she's with the kids every day, is kids are really struggling. I mean, never mind adolescents or whatever age group that you're working in, the COVID, the effects of COVID. But for kids of color right now, it is really, really hard, especially so if you're undocumented, you're unaccompanied, you're working full time, you're expected to go to school, you're expected to graduate in 4 years because there's a 4-year graduation threshold, or 5-year like hanging over you as a goal. It's. I think we need to name the challenges of our systems. But I think, Val, what I heard in your comment is this fear, right? Even if we see it through an asset lens, there is fear because there's a lot of surveillance right now. And it's really scary, and it reminds me of the times that I've been studying North Korea, or I've been close to the country, or other countries where you've been surveyed. I'm gonna have to think about that, and it makes me super sad. And unfortunately, it is a reality right now. I think going back into institutions, I remember sitting in IME classes thinking, do you do this work inside the system outside the system? Do you break down the system? Do you dismantle it? You know, master's tools, like where do you, right? And I think it's a choice of where you play. I feel really lucky to be at RIT where we collectively are driving our future, right? Based on the knowledges that come together with these multiple beautiful epistemologies and languages and so forth, that we have this opportunity as a community organization to do that. It's harder within larger institutions, I imagine, community colleges, but that's where I've tried to step into certain places because I feel like those systems affect others downstream. So that's why I'm on the State Advisory Council. We're doing more advocacy, meeting with policymakers, and it's exhausting work. And that's why I think IME's sort of triple focus on research praxis and advocacy ties so well together. Because in order to be heard in those spaces, you have to be seen as a legitimate player and you're referencing legitimate knowledges and not just tokenistic lived experiences, but seeing those lived experiences is actually knowledge and then documenting that. So I actually have a piece coming out very shortly, I think it's already up, in the Encyclopedia of Refugee Studies called Living Knowledges. That these aren't tokenistic, time-bound lived experiences we're gonna reference anymore. We're gonna acknowledge that we're living these ongoing. And I'm gonna cite a former student, Marika, a descendant of Palestinians, who said, we're still living this 40 years on, and certainly over the last couple of years. These are living, they inform knowledges, they generate knowledges, knowledge is employed during migration. So, sorry to talk so much, but I'll just say that I think there's a whole legitimizing thing as well, but that's where we have to work in coalition.
Something small. First of all, you all are so impressive. One thing just to add is also perhaps inquiring, because I think a lot of the students that you may have come to the United States before they even start speaking English or as they're trying to learn English with trauma around language. So if you think about Haiti, they're supposed to all learn French, classes are all in French, that's the colonial language, and until about 10 years ago, they were only supposed to be speaking French. Now Creole finally Haitian Creole is more spoken and there's a solidarity and a power around speaking Creole, but it's still in the classroom. When I taught law school there, I was supposed to only teach in French. And I noticed the students were just glazing over, and it's only when I spoke in Haitian Creole that they're like, oh, this is an interesting class. And so I think I'm imagining students coming here, and if they have that language trauma of not speaking the French or whatever it is, that language in their country, if they're from Sri Lanka and they don't speak Sinhalese and they speak Tamil, like whatever that is, they come here with that already trauma of not speaking the language they're supposed to be speaking, and then they're dropped in and they have to do this whole thing with English as well. There's just a lot, and so unearthing that and really having that discussion around the background of it could also be pretty helpful.
Thank you. I would like to address the question about the accent that you raised, one of you raised that question. That I think we need to tell the students that I always do when I used to teach ESL, that the most important thing for teachers and students to know when it comes to accent is to tell the students the most important thing is to understand and be understood by native speakers. It's not important what kind of accent people speak, because native speakers themselves, native speakers of any language, they have accent too. There's nobody without an accent, okay? So everybody has an accent. There's regional accents, there are occupational accents, and there are foreign language accents. And the best example of this is listen to the people that they speak in the House of Representatives or our senators. Listen to them. All of them, each person of them, they speak with a different accent of the region where they come from. And so accent is that thing. Another thing that they need to know is that, although somebody was speaking about, I think in the morning, somebody was saying that somebody wanted to talk, just you listen to the tapes to speak like Dr. Fishman. That was very admirable talent. You could probably do that, but after a certain age, psycholinguistically speaking, and that's age 11, after a certain age, it's impossible to get rid of accent. A person who learns any language, not just English, any language, will always have an accent of his first language if that acquisition happens after age 11. But the most important thing is what? That we need to emphasize understanding and being understood, rather than speaking perfect English or perfect Punjabi or perfect Spanish. So if I start learning Spanish, I will have an accent. I do have an accent in English. I spell my name with Sadiq, S-E-D-I-Q-U-E, with French spelling, to confuse the FBI, just like But as soon as I open my mouth, they know that I'm not French. This is different kind of accent. But it is just that what people, and I tell my students, listen to me, I started learning English at age 21, no matter how hard I try, I will always have an accent. Because the plasticity of the muscles involved in the production of sounds, the naturalization in the brain after age 11, all of these change. So if somebody wants to speak a language without an accent, they have to start what? Earlier than 11. For your students, it's too late. So tell them what? That they need to emphasize understanding and being interested. And this is an old thing, accentless English. The most important thing is what? We don't actually call it, there were classes used to offer, actually UC Berkeley offered classes called accent reduction. There's no such thing, accent reduction. If you go to a class of accent reduction, what you reduce is the size of your wallet, because it's so now we don't say accent reduction. We call it accent addition. It's just to look at the accent as a deficit thing, but as an asset thing. You want to add an asset, add an accent rather than reduce an accent. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Dr. Papal, and our panelists, just reminding us of, I think right now I love this, Dr. Papal is so charming, so smart, and so funny. But I was just thinking about this notion that I talk with my class a lot about, in terms of like language ideologies. What are the ways we're internalizing and fighting against linguistic hegemony and the way that language practices play out in very systematic and unequal ways in our society. So as we close, I'm just going to share a few thoughts, and but we don't have the 100% answers.
Sorry.
Oh, just turn it off. You can turn it off for her.
Shut it off.
But I just wanted to share, we don't, as the students ask questions, I think that keep asking questions because there isn't one answer. There has to be many answers, and that we are all fighting and searching and continuing to struggle for that. So as we think about these topics, and in such a time as this, when our communities, migrant communities, immigrant communities, bilingual communities, communities of color, LGBTQ, all of us are being attacked, are being suppressed, our rights, when authoritarianism seeks to silence and seeks to instill fear, we resist, we stand up, we stand in community, we claim human dignity for our immigrant brothers and sisters, for our immigrant mothers, fathers, daughters, uncles, all of our families and ancestors, our multicultural communities, our communities of color, our indigenous communities. We stand together, and that is the only way that we can move forward. I'm so grateful and thankful for this panel, who each of you is doing this work every single day across the diaspora of migrant, refugee, and transnational communities. So together and with the group, we say that what we already know, that immigrants are not criminals, we are resistors, we are guerreros, fighters for justice. So our hope is that we continue together to do this collectively across faiths, across differences. Collectively, we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our children, for human dignity, for migrant dignity, and for human rights for each and every one of us. Thank you, everybody.